Welcome to the 2023 Winter Classic Student Cluster Competition Studio Update Show. Now, here are your hosts, Dan Olds and Addison Snell.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another 2023 Intersect 360 Research Winter Classic Invitational Student Cluster Competition Studio Update Show. I'm Addison Snell alongside Dan Olds. And Dan, we are ready to update the big board with the results of our first big computing challenge on high performance LINPACK and HPCG, hosted by Hewlett Packard Enterprise.
Yes, this is the second year they've done this, and we are hugely grateful. And these are the first real computational things the students are doing. Real students, real keyboards, real hardware.
Yeah, we got them going with the primer on the HPC pop quiz, introduce them to the industry. But as you point out, this is where they really sink their teeth into actually having to code something up, run a benchmark, optimize it. And HPE got them started for the second straight year. This year acting as our platinum sponsor as well as a mentor for the students. So big thanks to HPE.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about the challenge themselves and what they had to do.
Well, LINPACK, you know it.
I've heard of it.
You've heard of it. It's what defines the top 500 list and has done since 1993. Highly parallel. It mimics those early years workloads from HPC. Not as relevant today, but it's still the only really consistent yardstick we have to measure how systems are advancing.
Yeah, it's, as you said, the cornerstone of the top 500 list. It's how we typically measure or rank the most powerful supercomputers in the world. It is pretty parallel, and it's a great benchmark to start the students on. But then on the flip side, we gave them the HPCG, the high performance conjugate gradient, which is increasingly gaining traction in parallel to high performance LINPACK as a type of problem that's more challenging to scale. It uses sparse matrix algebra as opposed to dense matrix algebra, and really stresses some of the networking and memory components of scalability. It's a tougher benchmark to get it to scale, and has a lot more in common with a lot of modern types of HPC applications.
Yeah, I've actually run both HPL and HPCG on my personal systems. HPCG does stress everything. They both do. The only thing I've seen that stresses a system nearly that much is Bitcoin mining. But these are bookends, because LINPACK will show you what the best possible performance is for your system. HPCG will show you the worst. Your mileage will be somewhere in between.
Now, we said HPE is acting as the mentor. What did that entail, Dan?
A lot. They, as they did last year, they went all out for this. They provide training on general HPC topics for the students to give them some context. They taught them how to use the cluster, how to run the benchmarks, some ideas for optimization. But the thing that's kind of behind the scenes is that they were doing an upgrade on their training system, and they pulled that off using a lot of personal time and a lot of people behind the scenes to make sure that we would have the system in time.
We're going to have a studio update show with interviews with some of the mentors from HPE and their experiences with the students. Like I said, very grateful to HPE acting as the platinum sponsor and as the mentor here. But for this studio update show, Dan, we want to get to the real stars, who are the students themselves. Let's see how they did. Let's get to some results.
Let's get to them. So, HPL results, they skewed towards the high end.
The students did a good job.
They really
parallelizing
did.
a LINPACK. Now, the scores as we show them on our big board are going to be normalized to where the best score is 100. So it's not like the exact score here is the exact percent utilization. But in general, the students did very well on LINPACK, up in the 70s, of efficiency. And you're talking about students who are often getting their first exposure to HPC and to LINPACK. This is something that hard-bitten HPC pros take multiple runs at to try to get the efficiency as high as possible.
Well, that's the thing. And we had 11 teams that successfully got through it. Florida didn't have a valid result.
Florida A&M.
Florida A&M didn't have a valid result. But look at these scores. I mean, even the scores towards the end are still in the 80s, which is
They're
great.
doing it.
They
Jackson
are.
State on there. UTEP is a big leap up to UTEP. Prairie View A&M, our last year's champ, put in a really good score.
Yep. Let's take a look at
and then it gets better from here.
The murderous middles, I'm starting to call it. Take a look at these, right? There's a whole bunch of teams from 88 to 96.99 points. We've got
that's dense.
Yeah.
That's really only 10 points of difference from UTEP up to Morehouse there. Morehouse with a good score this year, really improving the performance from last year.
Fantastic on Morehouse. So you probably want to see the top three, right?
Of course we want to see the top three. Okay,
let's see who took it home. We have nearly an all-Texas show, except UC Santa Cruz took third with just over 97 points, so it was very close.
Those not so slow slugs. There's the tongue twister of the event. Yeah, coming in third. They're on the podium, but at all Texas Tech in the win and place column. The Red Raiders and the Matadors both back from last year, taking the top two LINPAC spots.
Absolutely. They have quite the rivalry going, and it was close. I mean, 98.14 to 100.
But
very good
strong
job.
Scores across the board on LINPAC.
Oh, yeah.
Really well done. I'm impressed by the students. I think you and I would have had trouble getting on the board here. I think I would have been did not finish for me.
Yeah. I may have turned in some scores, but unlikely to be valid.
All right, that was half of the challenge. We had LINPAC. Now, how is HPCG? Did we get as much consistency there with submitting the results? That one's a challenge.
That's a different story. We had, as we can see on the screen now, 5 teams that couldn't submit a valid run.
Well, that's tough, but this is a rough benchmark and maybe not surprising. What I take from this is that more than half the teams did get a run in.
Yeah. And there's a couple of reasons for this, that the HPCG nodes they were using were down for one day during the week, but they did get an extra day. But I think that this is competition first time jitters and some procrastination thrown in, which college students, they procrastinate. So do I.
That's true.
And in looking at the traffic on the system, yeah, we can do that. A lot of teams didn't really get started in earnest until the last few days of the week, but most of them started on LINPAC and ended up spending more time on it.
And it's an iterative process. You run it again, run it again. All right, well, let's get to the scores that did get on the board.
There again is the murderous middle.
Cal Poly Pomona at least gets a score on the board, and then they start picking up. But now you're talking about in the 40% range of what was the top score. So
not the 80s.
It starts to imply that there was a team that really did succeed on this ahead of the others.
There were a couple of teams. Let's take a look at the top 3 now. And it jumps from the 40s to the 80s right quick with Texas Tech Matadors, 83.56, and UC Santa Cruz in there again.
UC Santa Cruz on the podium for both the high-performance LINPAC and high-performance conjugate gradient, but the top score here goes to CSU Channel Islands, or one of the two teams, the Dolphins from CSU Channel Islands. Well done, Dolphins, getting the top score.
Done. This is their very
first the conjugate gradient. This is a tough benchmark. Well done.
This is their very first podium win. Woohoo! In this competition and last year, so very well done. But
all right.
What does it do to the big board?
New big board.
So here's last week's big board. Dolphins were on top. Cal Poly Pomona in second. We had University of New Mexico, El Paso, and the Red Raiders following. Let's take a look at how it
that was after the pop quiz. Now,
yes.
All right. The bottom of this one, you're going to get teams that didn't get their scores in. That's a big hit. If you didn't get a score on the board, you get a did not finish. That typically is going to get you toward the bottom. That doesn't, some of them had great scores in some areas. Look at Morehouse with one of those top scores on LINPAC. Very well done.
Yeah. But the HPCG, No two ways around it. It's going to hurt.
Yep.
So here we go for the middle
of the pack. I like seeing Texas Tech Red Raiders there. Now they got out-pipped by the other Texas Tech team that dropped them back a little bit behind. New Mexico with solid scores across the board, along with UTEP. Cal Poly Pomona took a hit on the third one, but they're in there. These are some good scores. I'm impressed.
Yeah, I am too. But I guess in this next screen, we're going to see how the Battle of Texas Tech is raging.
That's right. There it is. Texas Tech Matadors. Just ahead of the Red Raiders. This was a great rivalry last year with the two Texas Tech teams going at it. And it seems to be shaping up that way again. But look at UC Santa Cruz in second place overall. They didn't hit the top of the podium in any individual benchmark, but they're coming in strong time and again. And that's got them in second place overall, especially with the strength of that HPCG benchmark. And then top of the pack, Dan.
The Dolphins.
Cal State Channel Islands Dolphins with two individual number ones. And then they did very strong on LinPack as well. That's nice. Way to go, Dolphins.
There's something even more noteworthy about UC Santa Cruz. They jumped from 12th up to second.
It's a good point. They've really made a strong move, especially, they had a very strong LinPack score and a very strong HPCG score. That's going to move them up the board, and they're within shouting distance of the absolute top. In fact, when I look at it, there's some density there at the top. There's all these scores in the 200s, and we saw a lot of big board movement late in the game last year. So this is still wide open. Some of these benchmarks have had sneak tricks involved that you can blow away your competitors and gain a lot of points fast.
There are some ways to exploit it. And I do want to mention the Matadors going into third from ninth. Wow.
That's a big move up.
But these
benchmarks matter.
It's anybody's race still.
Oh, yeah. Long way to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, what are the students doing now? They finished up Oak Ridge last week, and they're going to be with NASA this coming week on an undisclosed application that they're going to find out about on Friday.
Hush, quiet.
Well, I know what
it's all right. I can't tell them. I don't know what it is.
I don't know. Told you. I know. I can't.
I'm on the outside in this, Dan. I just report on it. I have no influence whatsoever.
So the next results are going to be from the Oak Ridge Challenge. We're going to have mentor interview with HPE, student interviews coming up. We've got webcams on the way for them. And please be sure and look for us in our media partner, HPC Wire, and on social media. You can see our handles up there. And stay tuned.
Stay tuned. We got a lot more studio update shows ahead. This is going to be a fun competition, Dan.
It's just getting better and better.
All right. Thanks a lot, Dan. And thanks to you for tuning in. Stand by. We've got more coming up.